that leaves us three things that we can look into. Academic journals, they'll tend to be very, very high level. They'll be more complex, they'll have more advanced information. They also tend to be longer, so they'll be about 20 pages. A magazine article will be somewhere in the middle. Whoops, I accidentally clicked it. And so they can be helpful as well, and sometimes magazine articles can be a good starting point. They're a little bit more sophisticated than a news article, but they're not quite as advanced as an academic journal, so that can be a good place to start. So we can see that we have quite a few things here. For example, will the climate kids save the planet? So that's about some things that were in the news last year. As we can see, some of these are a little bit more general as well. New economics for climate change. This person says we should rethink public innovation policies to transform how we tackle global warming, so that could be really helpful. Local government versus global warming, that's an interesting article. That's from The Economist, so that could be very helpful. So there's some good things here, as you can see. If we go to academic journals, just going to unclick magazines so we can just see the academic journals. And we can see that this is where we're really going to get the best quality information. As I said, the one thing about academic journals is that you want to be very careful as you're choosing them because they're a little bit more work to get through. They'll have more in-depth information, and so it's a little bit more of a time investment. But that is the best place to get your information. Now, the third kind of source that we have here are books. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. Books. And we've got 350 books here. And since we've already clicked full text, it's only going to show us ebooks that we can access online. So every single one of these books, you can read the entire thing online through the database without having to pay anything or take it out, which is great. Using a book for your research has advantages and disadvantages. An advantage is that it gives you a very comprehensive look at a specific subject. It'll take you by the hand a little bit more and guide you through the subject that you're studying. The disadvantages are, of course, that it's a little bit longer, and so if you want to have multiple sources in your research essay, it takes up a bigger chunk. But remember that you can always use only the chapters that you think apply to you. So for example, if we wanted to access this book right here, we could open it up. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. And we could take a look at the different chapters, and we could only use those chapters that are going to be most relevant to us. Now, the other disadvantage to using a book is that books take a very long time to write, edit, and publish. And what that means is that even though the publication date here is 2018, some of the information that you find in it is actually going to be less up to date, less current than if you use, say, an academic journal or a magazine, because the process just takes so much longer to get that book researched, written, edited, and then published. It takes a long time. So if you're going to use a book, one thing I suggest is that you really try to find the most up-to-date book possible. Like a 2020 is going to be better than a 2018 even. Okay, let's go back to academic journals. And let's say that we've found something that we think is going to be great for our research. We're ready to take a look at it. Let's pick one here. This one looks great. Probing the hidden depths of climate change, analyzing national climate change legislation. That looks perfect. Now, if we go down here, we can go to HTML full text, and that will bring up the article right away. We can also get a PDF full text version of it. So rather than do that though, I'm going to suggest that you start by clicking on this top link. And this is going to take us to a page before you actually look at the full article. It takes us to a page that looks like this. And this is going to have some very, very helpful things for us. First of all, you can see that it's got all the publishing information neatly organized for us. But the really helpful thing that it has here is it has what's called a description. And in some cases, it might be called something else. It might be called an abstract. But it will have a paragraph that looks like this. And what this basically is, it's a one-paragraph summary of the article. This is a very, very helpful thing for you to look at before you dive into the article, because you'll have a good idea of the kinds of sources, the kinds of information that you're looking for. If we were to just jump in and start reading the article, we might get 10, 15 pages into a 20-page academic journal article, and we might realize, oh, dang, this is not what I was actually looking for. This is not going to be helpful for me, and I've basically wasted 2 hours or 3 hours going through this article, and it was a misuse of time. If we read the description first, that's going to let us know in advance if this is an article that we really want to devote that much time to, if it's something that is really going to be helpful for us. So make sure that before you read the article, you're going through the description and getting a little bit of an overall sense of the article first. Now, this page also has a few other things that are going to be very helpful for us. First of all, one thing I need to note is that this URL at the top of the page is randomly created. It's a randomly generated URL by the library system. And that means that if we try to copy this and email it to ourselves, or even if we hit the bookmark button on our browser, it's not actually going to give us a link that we can use later. If we want to save an article for later, we need to go to email, and then you'll be able to enter your email address right here, email to, and it will send you a permanent link so that you can access this article from any computer whenever you want to. Now, the other thing that's going to be very, very helpful for you guys, whoops, took me back, where was that one? Here it is. The other thing that's going to be very helpful is this button right here, this link that says Cite. So next week, in week 10, we are going to be doing our full lesson on APA. And APA is a system that we're going to use to cite our sources so that we can let our reader know exactly where all of our information came from. So we're going to do that full lesson next week, but for now, it's very helpful to know that if you hit the Cite button and then you scroll down on this bar here, it will give you a perfectly formatted APA citation in the 7th edition of APA. And so you can copy this and you can drop this right into a reference page, and your reference for the reference page is already done for this site. That means you don't have to go through the APA handbook. You don't have to do any of the more complicated things we're going to do next week with APA. You've got this work already done. So that's another advantage of using the library database. So, library database, again, it's a very, very helpful resource. You can find lots of sources. Unlike with Google, it's not going to ask you to pay any money to access the article, and it will automatically do your citation, which is very helpful. So it has a lot of advantages. The big disadvantage has to do with the search function. So you'll have to play with it a little bit. You'll have to play with your search terms and come up with synonyms. But if you're having trouble with this, if you're having trouble with the search function, a helpful thing that you can do is you can go to Google. We can go to Google Scholar. And we can try using Google Scholar. And the search algorithm for Google Scholar is actually very effective. So we can say climate change. Regulation. And what we can do is that if we find a really effective source, let's say since 2019, if we find a source that's really good, then what we can do is we can take the title or take the author's name, then go back into the library database and find it here. All we have to do is go to select a field, and we'll be able to change it to title, and then we can put in the full title of that article. If you try to go access it directly through Google Scholar, there's a very good chance that a paywall will come up and you won't be able to access it. But again, what we can do is we can use the search algorithm for Google Scholar, then we can go back to the library database and we can find the exact title here, and that way we'll be able to access it for free. I hope this has been helpful. I just want to emphasize that for your research essay that you're working on, you don't have to use the library database. You don't have to use academic journals, but it is a very helpful resource. And the better the quality of your sources, the more persuasive your argument is going to be, the more comprehensive your research will be, and the stronger your essay is going to be. So I encourage you to use the library database as much as you can, but it doesn't have to be every single one of your sources. If you've got, say, one academic source, one academic article as part of your research essay, then you'll be doing great. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys soon.